Hey guys, I'm Vicky. Welcome to this Jersey Girl's home. Guys, I nailed it. I met my year's worth of spaghetti sauce goal, but we still have tomatoes coming in. So instead of making more spaghetti sauce, I am roasting my tomatoes to make a sauce for beans with pork and tomato sauce. So the day before I started planning this project, I roasted the tomatoes and then put them through this sieve to separate the seeds and skin. This one is very convenient for small batches because it's much easier to clean this than to clean my Johnny Appleseed. But the Johnny Appleseed is much quicker and more effective if you're trying to make a big batch of sauce. So I'm getting all the liquid out that I can from these skins and seeds and straining that as best I can. I'm very excited to make some pork and beans. I am not going to be adding the pork, but I really like this base as for my baked beans. And you can see how well this tomato sauce came out. It's just beautiful. Next up, we need to get our beans started. We're going to take some dried navy beans and put them in the pressure canner. We are going to cover those dry beans with water and have a little bit of water above them and sprinkle some apple cider vinegar in there so that it makes the beans easier to digest when you eat them. We're going to set this Instapot to 25 minutes on the bean setting. When they're done, we're just going to give them a really good rinse. They're not going to be fully cooked, but they will be pretty close. And if you can see, it's getting dark out. I only have pockets of time to do these activities anymore because we have busy full schedules with school, extracurriculars, and everything going on. So the next day I will have everything ready to go and I will be able to get my canning done. Okay, friends, so this is what we're doing. We are putting our cooked beans into the pot and adding water so we can warm them up because we don't want to can any of this cold. We want it all nice and hot. So we're going to get that in there and cover this with water, bring to a boil. While that's happening, we're going to mix up the sauce. So we have fresh tomato sauce we made yesterday. I chopped my onions, salt, allspice, sugar, garlic powder, and some molasses. I am using the ball beans with pork and tomato sauce recipe. It is a pressure canning recipe. We are not adding the pork. We're just going to do the beans and tomato sauce. And I was comparing it to a recipe in this pressure canning cookbook called Pork and Beans. Everything is the same except for some of the spices. That's where the garlic powder and molasses comes in. I want to add that. You can also add cloves as well, but I am just going to do allspice because I don't want it to be too pungent. So that's my plan with that one. You want a pot that is not going to be reactive to the tomato sauce. So enameled, stainless steel, those are the things that you want to use when you're working with tomatoes. Otherwise, your sauce can get a very metallic taste, and that is not desirable. All right, let's get started. So we're going to add 1 quart of tomato sauce, 1 cup of diced onions. We're going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar and 1 tablespoon of molasses, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. And if you want cloves, it would also be 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. I think in lieu of the cloves, I think I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of ground mustard. That is not going to give the same flavor, but ground mustard is used in a lot of baked bean recipes, and I like that flavor, and since we don't have any pepper in here, I thought that would give a good balance with all the sweetness in here. Okay, so we're going to mix this up and get this cooking. You want to stir so the bottom doesn't burn. Now we're going to fill these jars 3/4 of the way full, and we don't want to get the water in, so you're using a slotted spoon. And now it's time to add our sauce. Okay, then we need to debubble because we have lots of air with these beans. And we do want a 1-inch headspace. Okay, and then we want to get our bands on finger tight. We did end up with about a spoonful of beans left with some sauce, but it's not enough to fill the jars to go in the canner. So what I'll do with this is I'm just going to cook this up and have it just as like a side with breakfast or lunch. Okay, so we filled this pot up with the water to the first line. So it's about 1 to 2 inches deep. And I used hot water, but it's not boiling because these are not boiling hot. I'm gonna get these in the canner. I'm gonna get this on medium-high heat. And get my lid on. We want to have a strong airless steam coming through here for 10 minutes before we start measuring our pressure. I am at a regular elevation below 1,000 feet, so my pressure needs to come up to 11 pounds. Usually I can tell that this is going to be steaming correctly when this part pops up. So 10 minutes, then I'm gonna put my weight on, watch my pressure, and then maintain pressure for the amount of pressuring time for the recipe. This recipe is 1 hour and 5 minutes, so 65 minutes for pints. The steam has been going for 10 minutes, so I'm going to put my weight on and bring the pressure up to 11 pounds. When that gets to 11 pounds, then we will maintain that pressure for 65 minutes. Okay, we are gonna make balsamic onion jam while our beans and tomato sauce are pressure canning. This recipe is really easy. It calls for 2 pounds of diced onions, which is equivalent to 2 quarts, or not 2 quarts, 1 quart. Okay, so we get that all in there. So 1/2 cup of balsamic vinegar, 1/2 cup of maple syrup, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of ground white pepper. We're gonna mix this up and cook this until the onions get translucent before adding the rest of our ingredients. And then we're also gonna add a bay leaf. Okay, while the onions are cooking, we're gonna prep the rest of our ingredients. We need 2 cups of apple juice. And it says with 3 tablespoons of low or no sugar pectin, and 1, 2, 3. That is not a full bag, so make sure you measure that. And then we are going to mix this up as best we can. And then we'll set this over by our pot, and 1/2 cup of sugar. And we're gonna use our turbinado sugar. So I'm just gonna set this aside for when it's ready to go. All right, so these are looking pretty translucent. There's a little bit of white in here. So in a couple more minutes, this will be completely ready to add our next ingredient, which will be the apple juice and pectin. All right, this looks nice and soft. We're gonna add our 2 cups of our apple juice with our pectin. And we're gonna bring up our stove to high heat, and we wanna get this really boiling good. This, without even finishing the ingredients, this is starting to smell delicious. This will make a really good burger, or even like adding this on your cheesesteak. That's exciting. Can't wait. Working on getting this into a strong rolling boil. Okay, we have a nice strong boil, and now we're gonna add in a 1/2 cup of sugar, and I'm using my turbinado sugar. And we want this to boil for 1 minute. Okay, the directions call for a 1/4 inch headspace. And you'll see I worked with 1 scoop in the beginning, because if you kind of don't divvy that top part, you're gonna end up with a lot of liquid in 1 jar and not much liquid and a lot of onions in the other. And it says it makes 5 pints, which is looking like it's going to be pretty accurate. I always like to have an extra jar out just in case. And we do not want to put the bay leaf in, so make sure you leave the bay leaf out of here, out of your jars. All right, that was perfect. It went right down to the very last drop. These are going to be sticky, so we want to clean the rims with some vinegar. This will keep the stickiness off the jars where it could cause a lid seal failure, because we don't want the lid to stick because it's stuck to the stickiness. We want it to seal because we canned it properly. This will get processed for 15 minutes. And I'm gonna use this pot because I think that it'll hold the 5 jars very well. And I had gotten one of these things at the store to put on the bottom, so we're gonna test that out. I'm gonna get hot water into my pot. Filled it up about halfway. My thing flipped so that the metal piece is up, and I want to try with the metal piece down. Because I don't know if that would be good for it to sit on against the jars like that. Let's get these in. This is perfect. Very good. So I'm gonna get my heat on. I'm gonna add more water to cover the jars. This will be perfect. I was hoping it would work well for when I just needed to do a small batch versus heating up a very large canner, because that can take a long time. You have a large jar and not a lot of items in it. Okay, we're gonna bring this to a boil and process for 15 minutes. That's beautiful. Okay, and last but not least, our beans and tomato sauce are done. Came out beautiful. The white marks on my jars are just dried minerals from my well water. I did not put vinegar in there. All right, have a great night. Bye.